So I work for a company which I co-founded. It's called Little Chicken Game Company, which is a serious game developer in the Netherlands. And we've been around for 15 years. So a bit of an old hand in our neck of the woods. Not so much across the pond, so to speak. And we develop games for clients. We do that in healthcare, corporate, medical as well. So we work for clients like KLM or ExxonMobil to do some of the games like Phaedra described. And we also started out with a lot of branded content and games for brands. I myself am the creative director, so that means I'm involved with shaping the concepts and guiding our creative team, so to speak. Enough about that. Let's talk about engagement, because today we've heard a lot about big data, and it had me thinking a little bit about how we're thinking from data is something that's out there and you gather, it's a fruit to be harvested. And engagement is about turning that a little bit upside down. If you talk in the context of games, engagement is about making people a partner in your process, making them the focal point, if you will. So if you look at big data, we now take big data, but if we could make it a game, you would want to give big data as an individual. And I said, I'll give you a little story about a little bit of what we do. So a little bit over a year ago, we were double-blind testing a game to teach young students of vocational training how to become welders and lathe operators and electricians. And these are kids which are, let's say they're not academics. They're all boys and they're all teaching to be in an apprenticeship, so to speak. And we were testing this game with multiple groups of students where they got to learn how to weld and operate machinery. And something happened. At some point, the teacher comes over to me and he says, in 15 years, I've not seen this, because the lunch bell just rang 10 minutes ago, and these kids are still here. And he had never seen these kids not run out and get a cigarette when the lunch bell rang. And that's engagement. And that got me thinking a little bit. It was not something we were testing when we were there. We were testing how well these kids could learn from this piece of software, how well the goals were being met. But we hadn't set a goal at how much fun they were having. And that's why I said, it's just there, because we all understand when we're engaged. We're human beings. When something is nice or fun or entertaining, we all get that. But we don't necessarily always talk in the context of serious gaming about what is engagement, how we can get it, and what are the ingredients, so to speak, and how we design for it. And in the people we meet, that sometimes provides a little bit of a barrier between those people wanting to use serious games and those people trying to make serious games. And I think part of that is because if you look it up in the dictionary, it says it's emotional commitment, which is soft. It's not a hard goal. It's not data. It's how we feel, and if we enjoy something, if we're committed, if we feel ownership of it. So that's soft. Whereas the people we work for, like a scientist, we work for people, and I'll give you a case about that later, looking for early indicators of Alzheimer's in an older populace. They need to collect data and analysis and want to use games to get that data. We work for educators who need to transfer knowledge and skills. Well, we've learned all about that today, that we understand quite well how we can do that. There is research being done. There is gameplay mechanics. We are measuring it. It's something we're starting to understand and actually already understand. The healthcare professional we work for, we're coming out a game this week for people with kidney failure who need to lengthen the period that they can run on their existing kidneys by being healthy so they live long enough to receive a kidney transplant, which is an emotional issue in itself, because that kidney is never going to get better. That is a one-way street to a kidney transplant nowadays. So they need to change behaviors. And the communicator, he wants to reach a lot of people and do all the other things, actually. They want to measure and analyze and communicate. But these are all hard goals. We say, how much have you learned? How often have you learned it? Have the skills been transferred? How many people's behavior have you changed? These are all rigid, hard, scientifically measurable goals. Whereas the game designer goes, yeah, we can do that, but first we need to engage. We only look at the engagement. For us, that's the engine that drives the train, so to speak. We can only get someone to become healthier if they want to play that game, if they are engaged and committed to participate in that program, so to speak. So there is, and we feel that if you in the industry, there is a barrier between academics and clients and corporations and the game designer, where we have trouble explaining exactly what that magic is, because we don't know necessarily in advance if a game is going to be a hit or if people are engaged. So, and what happens is that it's sometimes seen if we work with people, big corporations, they have a core goal. You know, they want to, like Veda explained, how cities change. That is their goal. They need mechanics to explain that. And then what it looks like, how it feels, what's the fun, how do we get people to enjoy that and get motivated for being a part of that, becomes a bit of a sauce. It's that magic that games do, you know, make it a cool character, or, you know, have an engaging storyline, or having fun mechanics. So, and we say it's definitely not a sauce. It's the engagement of getting a user committed is part of the earliest steps of a process of developing a serious game. And as an industry, I seriously believe that we don't invest in the pathways to do that. So, and I have a little proof of that, because the industry is now, we learned this morning, 5 billion strong in revenue. Whereas if you look online, gaming is huge. It's an explosion. 32% of the time spent on your mobile device is spent on gaming. And then you go where everybody's paying their money to get to their consumers is on Facebook. That's only 17%. That's nearly half. You know? And web browsing is like 16 or whatever, 14%. It doesn't even make a dent in the user's time on mobile. Whereas we get corporate clients still investing heavily in browser and Facebook type stuff. It's games. But if we look at this entire serious game industry, if we say, well, let's look at what amount of that is serious gamers, serious games that are coming to the consumer, that we play, that you play, it's immeasurably small. You might have a Fitbit or a Nike Fuel Band for a couple of months. And some people might have a gamification app like Runkeeper, and that's it. And then you have a bunch of children's educational stuff. But that is only a fraction of the explosion of gaming. So we are not, somewhere, we're not doing something right. I think as a game designer, we're not committing ourselves to understanding, as a serious game industry, the engagement part, the emotional commitment of people to the game they play. We're not making it a goal. We say, we want to learn, you know, we want to learn stuff, we want to transfer knowledge, and that becomes the core focus. So what I want to do today is a little bit talk about and give some ingredients, how you can change your perception and do what Fedra says, go back to the player, and what does he want? You know, what is this playing about, and how can we look at our processes and say, well, what if we want to engage and turn someone from a subject into an active participant? It works for all kinds of things. So we call something called the power of play for our company means, and it's always meant, is that we all understand playing. I never have to explain what games are to anybody, because they play games. They play soccer, which is a game, or chess, or patience, or you know, Flappy Bird, or they play huge computer games. Everybody plays. Some people play in their car, you know, or you play instruments. There's no, well, it's interesting that the word playing is so pervasive in our culture. Well, a theater play. So everybody understands it. We all grasp it, and we all deep down know that if we see people playing, they can learn. And we understand it's about learning. So we add to that, we say, it's a journey. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. And it's about identity and growth. So that's two important words for me. So because if you start playing, if I go play at a soccer match, I become a left back or I become a goalie. You know, if I start playing chess, I, in some sense, become a chess master or a general, whatever you do. You always take on a slightly different identity. Could be your own identity, but at least you're leaving behind your existing identity. I'll get back to that a little later. And it's about growth. Games are about learning. Why do your dogs and cats play? Well, nobody taught them that. That's not part of their culture. It's part of their nature to experiment and have a safe situation where they can fail, where they can cheat, and do whatever without consequences. And that's playing. And we think that we're hardwired to enjoy that. That's what everybody's been saying today. It's part of our human nature to learn through playing. Consequences, without consequences, experimenting and feeling free doing that. And we enjoy that. And as a company say, well, by engaging people through play, we can reach out to them, we can teach them, and we can change their behavior. And that's a bit about what we do. And today, when I made this presentation, let's find some ingredients about this engagement part. So let's not talk about gamification or goals or mechanisms or gameplay. Let's just specifically talk about what it takes you to become engaged. So I start at the bottom of the pyramid. We need to give you an identity, or we need to release you from your existing identity. I'll get through all the things. We need to take you on a journey, which is a trick we use to describe what we do as storytellers or game designers. We talk about taking you on a journey, the player, taking you away, which is even more important. We need to get you invested. You need to want to come back to play. So it's not just, oh, this is fun, and then I'll uninstall it. You need to be invested in whatever you're doing. And we need to challenge people so they can grow, so they become better at something. Because the soccer match is not necessarily about winning that cup if you play for fun. It's about new ways of learning to play, about becoming a little better, about having a little bit more social dynamic, or even about cheating. But it's all about changing who you are within the context of that player identity. And on top, because we're serious games, put a little flag is what we really want to do, which is not about the user, which is getting their data or getting them to learn. So I'm going to take you on a little, hopefully, entertaining journey about how we look at it as game designers. And we, just like Fedor said, we go back to we the players. What do we want? Well, here we are, and we're in Finland, so I gave everybody a Viking helmet, but apparently that should have been Moomins and not Vikings, so I apologize. But the truth, we are players the moment we put on that hat of being a player. So not about role-playing necessarily. It's about putting on that hat and going somewhere and becoming a player. So if it's a left back or just someone in a match, it's an entire new rule set of social or gameplay fun. And we say we take them on a playful journey. Why? Because if we take someone away, we can give them a new identity, and let go of the existing identity. And it's easier to say, we take you away somewhere, than to explain that. So if we say, you become an explorer or a builder, that's an easy way for you to become one, and to feel free to experiment and safe to fail, which is the most essential parts of learning through play. You need to be safe to fail, otherwise you're not going to experiment and let go of those creative juices to feel what the learning's about. So it's about safety, and if you are yourself, so I'm a student, and I'm in that learning factory, and the teacher said, you got to have your homework, you do your assignments, you're a student. And then we're going to ask you to play. That's not really going to work. So we have to say, stop being a student, start being a player, and have some fun. Or stuff we do for people with kidney disease. We say, well, we want you to play and grow and go on a journey and experiment with your own disease and stuff. And they know they have a terrible disease. So we need to find a way to have them leave that existing world a little bit behind. So, and the issue, and make them have fun. Huh? So the first part, you go somewhere, is we need to take them somewhere. And the easiest thing we can do as a game designer is take them somewhere far away. We can all go on a journey today, take a cab to the airport and back. It's not a very interesting journey. They say we're all going to Bora Bora or Fantasy Island. It's much more interesting. It's much easier to let go of your existing identity. So it's a bit of a cheat. And I'm going to show that at the end why it's a cheat. But taking someone far away, taking a child to a fantasy land or a fairy forest is easier than to say, well, let's sit in the living room and pretend these are blocks. So that's why a lot of games, in my opinion, go to Fantasyland. It's the easiest way to give you freedom to explore because it's so far removed from your regular identity. And the second is, we need to make people feel unburdened, which I said, let go of that school mentality of I have to do that. If you force someone to play, they're not playing. Playing about is having fun and doing it on your own terms. I need to want to play. And that's what happens a lot when we talk to corporate clients. No, people, it's only powerful if you make people want to play, if it's fun and enjoyable, because then they'll do it in their spare time, during lunch. And otherwise, it's just going to cost you money to give them something to do while they actually could also be working. So we've skipped, I've put a little, you probably can't see, we're now at the journey part of our little pyramid. And the next part is, we're going away. So I've made a little boat. And we need to go somewhere, we figured that out. And now we need to want to stay on course, so to speak. We want to be part of the game. We've piqued your curiosity. You know, you've said, okay, I bought a ticket. Now we need to make it your own. So what we do, we need to give them control. It's their journey as players. We as players want to steer and feel it's our story. So we give them a sail and a rudder on their little Viking boat. We also need to give them, perhaps like we've seen, the power to build and make something your own. So I've had a little, what do you call it? Ship dragon thingy and some gifts for them to decorate it with. Sounds really simple, but if I decorate something and build, I'm investing in what I'm doing. Which is a hugely powerful gameplay mechanic, is investment. Because we want people to feel ownership. It's my character, it's my story, it's my city, it's my journey. So that I come back and see how it did. And we keep continuing that along the journey. And then, of course, we need to go around with our boat. And we're going to put that boat in danger, with flying sheep in my case. And those flying sheep might drop some rewards or whatever. The trick is, we're at risk, which is a huge word, which is not in my presentation, which is hugely important when you're truly playing. So I'm risking whatever I'm invested in with the hopes of gaining some rewards. And in the meanwhile, I'm attacking, destroying, defeating, helping the flying sheep, which represents, of course, our real goals. I need to learn something. I need to take my medicine every day. I need to exercise an hour. That's our flying sheep. And we give people the opportunity to be challenged so that they can overcome the challenge and feel happy about it. And we talk about, in gamification, we talk about dopamine and rewards and how the human brain is hardwired every time we receive a gift to become happy. But I don't think so. I think the human brain becomes very happy when we've earned a reward, when we've done something significant, when a gift turns into a reward. So it's not about giving people stuff, it's about having them earn it. And that makes you feel really good about yourself. And then you grow. Even if you're just playing Flappy Birds, because I'm taking Vikings and doing the classical game journey with you. If you're just Flappy Birds, ooh, I made the level. That's a journey with a challenge in which you've grown. You've gone better at tapping your iPhone. So it's the small and the big. And once we're busy with that growth, so it's all about challenging people. So we need to blow them a little bit away and it needs to take some effort. But if you're not careful, you can make, if you're game designing and thinking from the player and you're doing this, there's a tendency to pile on stuff. But we don't want that. We don't want huge, necessarily, to frustrate a player too much. We want to find a balance with a little bit of frustration where you want to win. So we need to give them enough challenge, but not so much that they feel either confused or stuck or overloaded. Because this is digital gaming. They're just going to abandon ship and turn off their iPad or their iPhone, and they will be gone to you. So there's a balance here. That's the balance of game design, so to speak, and not necessarily engagement. So in the end, there's one huge difference between serious games and entertainment games. In entertainment games, it's all about that journey and earning rewards and growing as a virtual character, experimenting. You don't actually need to find that golden chest at the end. But in serious games, we do have quite solid targets. We need to learn something. We need to change our behavior. We want to measure something. So we have solid goals. So serious games usually have a destination. Not necessarily, but there is this practical goal. And once you go on this journey of designing such an engagement, the instinct is to say, oh, we've reached it. Now I'm going to flip the screen and tell you, you've lost 10 kilos. Or you've learned 10 things. Or you got a 9 or A+. And physically take you back to the real world. But we say, well, if you're on this journey, and it is a journey in your little game, is let the player take himself back. He's responsible, he's invested, he's grown, he knows what he did. If he's learned something or walked in every mile, he can take it back to his own real world and take it back to reality, so to speak, himself. So we don't force people back from this engagement, so to speak. And we need to retain that engagement, because the core goal always is, because it's a little journey, but some games you want to take that journey every 5 minutes. Other games you want to take it once a year. But in essence, we will always want to return. So you don't want to break down whatever story you've given to the player and destroy his engagement, because then it's just become work again, or school, or his disease. So we like to keep the engagement and whatever we're telling intact at the end. And then we can reach our destination, have the goals, and have that audience still primed for whatever we want to do next, whatever future journeys. So, okay, that's a little story. So let's get back to reality. We do a lot of projects. I'm going to show you some old ones and some new ones from those same perspectives. So from the educator who needs to transfer knowledge and skills, and we're going to look at it from those ingredients. So a game we did, I think 6, 7 years ago, it's called Medical Investigators. And the goal was, the real life goal was to get high school kids to sign up for more science-oriented, how do you call it, post-high school education, to get them to be more interested in becoming a doctor or a physicist or a chemistry major. And we wanted to do that during their chemistry and physics and science lessons. So we wanted to have something to happen inside the schools. How we did that is by saying, well, for 6 weeks, you're all going to be medical investigators. And we're going to give you a game, a journey where you become a film noir investigator. Right? Everything's black and white, and there's bad guys, and there's murders. And you're going to have to solve those murders. The investment was we're going to give them every day, every week, we're giving you a clue. You research a virtual world, you find a clue. You find a bullet casing. You find a speck of gum or some DNA sample. And they got to take those DNA samples, which were just in the computer, and said, you found now bullet casing 36. And they would go to school the next day, this they would do at home, into the physics class, and there would be a box, and they could pick out bullet 36. And then together with their science teacher, they would do real experiments on the bullet, go back into the game after they've done, fill in, oh, this bullet was shot by this machine gun, for instance. And that would bring them along their investigation. And the challenge was to do those real-life experiments. And the growth is that you both learn the skills of medical investigation, fill the killer, and that's the growth for the player. They finish their investigation, they become the quickest or the best investigator. But the real goal was to get them to be more interested. So this is their goal, and the destination was to be more interested in science subjects. Which worked, because we changed the study we did afterwards. It was like, instead of 30% of students wanted to go into sciences, it was 60%. So, and that's been done for a couple of years. I'll show you a little video, because otherwise it gets really boring. So remember, it's like 7 years ago. So here you see the virtual world where they get to do their cases. And it's all hand-drawn, sort of all set up for those challenges, those investigations. And then we'll go play the game, go in the classroom, get the real sample, do the experiments, and fill it back in and unlock the mystery over 6 weeks. We actually went to the police station, had them shoot up a windshield of a car so they could do the stick trajectory analysis in class. The critique we got and I got after, because this is 7 years ago, this is taking engagement to its natural conclusion, but it's also taking it to a place which is highly impractical. It was so much work because we had one guy giving the blood, because they had to do the test, so if they find guy A, had to give blood, DNA, all those samples. So it was hugely impractical, but it was fantastic to do. So that's what we like to have a look at engagement. So, can I go onward? Where do I point? Can you click for me? And click again? I think it's crashed. Oh, so next one, the healthcare professional. So this one is not the kidney game. We're going to release that only this week. This was a game called The Explorer. Is for blind and visually impaired young children. So imagine if you grow up and you have a visual impediment and you need to learn to walk. Well, you're actually not going to learn to walk that well because you're going to run into stuff pretty fast, and that hurts. So what happens to young children with severe visual disabilities? They become very static because the world hurts and they don't want to explore. So they have motor skill issues when they grow up. So we wanted to provide them with a game that improves their motor skills. And the way we did that is we gave them a game with a Wii balance board. It's a Nintendo Wii game we released. You get on the balance board, you put on a headset, and you explore. You become an archaeologist. That's our identity we gave them. And the journey is into an Egyptian tomb, which is mostly dark. And they had to explore, and then they had to the challenge was moving your body to survive. So bats and mummies would come at you, and you had to on the time of the audio. And the investment here was interesting. So it wasn't just about exploring that tomb and getting deeper and deeper into that game, because it was a very simple game. What we found after we researched the public is that these kids are very isolated. They all have siblings or friends, and gaming is such a huge part of growing up in that age, you know, with the Nintendo and Mario and stuff, and they couldn't share that. So they would sit and listen to their brothers and sisters playing Nintendo Wii Mario Kart, for instance, and they would be jealous and they would feel isolated. So we made a decision together with the project owner and said, well, we would like to actually add a visual layer to this game. So it becomes also interesting to seeing kids, so they can compete and play together and annoy each other who gets to play on the balance board. The kid would have less time because he'd have to share, but the feeling that his brother would also want to play something he had was something we made part of the game, and which was actually, you know, feedback back to us. So, and the end goal is here to become the best explorer, because it's a speed run, but the real goal, of course, is to improve your motor skills. So we're going to show that. Oh yeah, this is the audio. So this was on the Nintendo Wii, and I did it 3 or 4 years ago, I guess. And there is a story about it. I'll let you watch. So it's a different type of journey, but it's still a journey, and the investment is a little different than giving people building blocks to make their own pretty boat. The investment is, you know, having something to compete with your siblings, but it's still, you know, a journey in our book. So, and then we come to the things we talked about in the previous presentation, that now corporations are waking up to games. So we do a lot of, how do you call it, optimizations, and we work with corporate excellence and academy programs within corporations like AXO. But we also do a lot of work for KLM. And KLM had a different case. We started out doing advertising games back in 2001 on the web. We did that for a long time, you know, branding, and people will understand your brand better when you put it in a game. But that market has sort of grown up. And KLM not just didn't want to reach out and create awareness, they want to reach the mobile audience, because it's important for them to have apps on the mobile that can access the Internet of Things, iBeacon, location-based. They want to do all these things which are locked away behind app permissions. So they thought they needed to be on mobile, which they do. They wanted to create social loyalty. That means that it's gaming connected to their social loyalty programs, to your, you know, debit, how do you call it? Customer loyalty card, your air miles, your frequent flyer miles. So they wanted to take that very old-fashioned but very effective means of gamification, which we call loyalty systems, into the next century and combine it with mobile game apps. And what they want to do is to have that audience on mobile maintained. So they wanted to have new games. And when they first came to us, we thought with them about, you know, checking in on the airport, getting air miles when you have only hand luggage, or, you know, getting a couple of extra miles when you're on time at the gate. That is a huge, powerful thought for an airline. If we can reduce through gaming the amount of weight on an airplane, that's a huge savings reduction. So the question for them is tremendous. So the ambition of making a gigantic app, they say, hey people, here is the app, and if you do what we want to do, we'll give you points, and then you'll fly cheaper and get extra leg room and all that stuff. We're not there yet. You can't just go into a market and say, hi consumer, we've got this fantastic gamification system, and we'll do everything, because you'll reach a tiny percentage of the people. And it's not a fair trade, because everybody with a brand can say, well, we'll poke through that. It's just KLM wanting us to do stuff, and they're dangling a little carrot. So together we made a multi-year strategy where we said, well, first we're going to show that it's a fair trade, and that KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines, accepts it as a fair trade, that they have to provide some form of true entertainment to people so that along the way they can get them to become loyal and trustworthy and get to that point where they can truly gamificate behavior. So we did that through the first game, which is out now. Next out one is coming this year, hopefully. Something crashed here. No? Power play. Oh, well, I'll skip through that. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. So again, it's a journey. The journey for this game, the first game we did was to become, the new identity we want people to take on is to become an airline manager. And because that in itself is not going to be appeal to the largest possible crowd, a very crowd exists actually in the shape of aviation enthusiasts, we want to give them a journey along the history of aviation. So start off with wooden and canvas biplanes, and then build your way up to modern jetliners and space flight. The investment is, this is a game about building and strategy. So we're going to provide you and unlock you the tools to build your own dream airline, to sort of imply, how do you call it, force your own strategy onto the game world. The challenge is you'll have to keep it alive and earn money just like a real airline. And the growth is that you can keep expanding all the way into the next game, earn rewards for new games and such and such. And the end goal for them is to have a loyal mobile player who is available and curious for future mobile endeavors. So this is for them just laying the groundwork. So I'm going to show it to you. So, this is the rule.
Our world is a place to marvel at, where any destination is just a plain journey away. But how was this made possible? Well, we have to thank those early aviation pioneers who risked their lives to begin an adventure that has led to modern air travel. The challenges they overcame have led to a global network and the advanced aviation infrastructure that we are all familiar with. Can you put yourself in their shoes and manage your own airline? Then you are ready for Aviation Empire.
So actually we said to them, well, this is going to be in the entertainment space. And of course, we're going to load social identities onto the servers and all that. We said we'll have to challenge ourselves to make a game that can actually compete. It's a corporate game, branded to the max, but it must still compete. It must still have commercial entertainment targets. So this got a Metacritic rating, which is aggregated rating of all the professional gaming press of 74, which is nice, 7. And did really well, and it actually still has, it's been out for a year, and we're expanding it every 2 months and committed to creating that audience. It has a very loyal following that follows us on Facebook, complains when we mess up with an update, yeah, and then we provide them a new one, we involve them in the game design decisions, and that has laid the template for an entire new department of gaming and social loyalty within KLM. We're also already one of the most social companies in airlines. You can Twitter now to KLM and say, hey, this guy told you something about it, it's true, and they'll Twitter you back in an hour, just by using the @KLM. So they're expanding that into games, and not just this game, but a whole range of games. So that's how a corporation as KLM is getting into this journey. And we'll end up with the scientist, and we'll go a bit back to gamification, because gamification for me, it's of course a little bit taking all the mechanics and the psychological tricks and stripping away this engagement and wanting to play. I'll just be happier when I get a few points. It'll make the entire process of process X a little happier. And this one is something we're working on at this moment. It's a project where a number of scientists at Radboud University in the Netherlands need a large data set to see if they can find indicators of early onset Alzheimer's. So they need a lot of data of people playing a certain amount of games to assess their cognitive function over time to see if those people that develop Alzheimer's have indicators in the data set. But that means we need players who play these 2 simple games, or there's about 5 or 6, which are all nice and fine. But the games are only there to test certain cognitive functions. And the challenge here is, how are we going to get someone to play for a year, once a month, this simple game, with the outcome that probably his mind is deteriorating. Because after you reach 50, your mind is going down. You can take all the food you want, you can exercise all you want, it's going down. And if you have Alzheimer's, it's going to go down a lot faster. That is not a positive, empowering journey we're going to take people on. So then things become difficult. So, God damn it, sorry, apologies. we can't say, well, take on this new role and discover and experiment and feel free to play with, which is a very bleak reality. Well, with the outcome of this app being, hey, the researchers have contacted you, you might have Alzheimer's. You have all the indicators. So that's heavy stuff. And the identity, yeah, it's very close to yourself. And that's why I say, well, when we take your identity far, far away on a journey to a tropical island, things become so much easier. Because you can feel free and have fun and grow as a person. But here, it's you, and you are not doing very well. But we need you to play these games so that we as scientists know a lot, and we might be able to help you or your family in dealing with this. So the journey is to analyze yourself. So we're entering gamification, health tracking, all that stuff. But we still consider it a journey. So what we're trying to design as we speak is a sort of a personal timeline, where we're going to empower people not to figure out how badly their brain is deteriorating, but is for them to find the correlations in their personal lives, to connect health graph or their runkeeper and see, hey, is my degradation, is my cognitive function a little brighter when I'm well rested, or when I'm with friends, or when I'm working? It's for the scientists not even that interesting, but it is the analyze yourself objectively is a journey in itself. You can step away a little bit from yourself and look at yourself as a science subject, so to speak, and gain some understanding and insight at least. To at least provide some sort of positive growth within a very bleak subject. So that's the challenges we face today. So it's no longer about you can learn great things through gaming or learning is easy. Learning through games is easy. We've proven it. There's scientific books, we've done the research, the double-blind studies, and this is the new field where we're going to say, well, we're going to take some of these things and have people do real things, like take care of their kidneys when they have a kidney disease, or figure out if they have Alzheimer's. So the takeaway is not even my little ingredients. It's about if you want to engage someone, and it's an easy trick, is to imagine taking them on a journey where you give them a new identity and you make them grow. If you can put those things in a game and it becomes appealing, you've laid the groundwork for an engaging game. That is, for us, the perspective we want to share. And flying sheep. Joke. That's it, I guess.